When I got here, I think it was around 20 trillion. Soon, it's going to be over 30 trillion. When I got here in January of 19, 18 trillion. That was approaching record levels.
You're on the budget committee.
Obviously, it's not transitory, and I'm on the budget committee, but Bernie Sanders is the chair, so we don't do any budgeting. Maria, we haven't done that in probably 10 years. And this is worse because we created it across the board with shutting down the economy, getting through COVID, incentivizing people to stay home and watch Netflix. Bingo. So we dumped in fiscal stimulus. The Fed bought all the debt. I mean, you don't need an econ degree to know why we're in the pickle. You can't even do that now because of all the debt in the economy, especially our government. It would tank it for another reason. So in this case, it would be to not dig the hole deeper, not pile on to the $3 trillion plus that we spent during the Biden administration so far, the inflation bomb. The country was never founded upon the principles that you borrow money to consume it. Right. Even if I like the policy, if it has a fake pay for, or we're borrowing the money from future generations, like I took my budget, to the floor just this week. We're 30 trillion in debt. Because we do not do any budgeting. Pre-COVID, with the Trump economy, no inflation. Best economy we had, and I was part of it for decades. It was working. 1% on 30 trillion is 300 billion, and then you start getting a few of them, you're all of a sudden spending as much on interest as you are in domestic spending or defense. The American people are strong and resilient, but they are represented by a government here that is not necessarily the same. Sometimes gets scoffed at, but they live within their household budgets. We're now 31 trillion in debt. We're going to have a much bigger problem down the road. Democrats roll a little different way. This is their kind of growth business and cathedral all wrapped into one, and they've been on a spree the last 2 years. I'm on the budget committee, and you know who gavels us in there? Bernie Sanders. He's never done one thing about budget mechanics. That's crazy politics if we go for that. Let's get to the fiscal side of it. There's no place in the country that can run the way this joint does. And this is debt you guys and your kids will be paying for. No budgeting, no appropriations that even an appropriator like myself can look at because it's done behind closed doors. I've been here 4 years, and we really haven't done any budget work. Next to close to $6 trillion in spending that we're going to do. I think we're going to be closer to $1.5 trillion deficit. They were $1 trillion deficits when I got here 4 years ago. You're going to get bloated budgets that increasingly are filling in the lack of having political will to actually raise funds for whatever you're spending. We do not do budgets anymore. I think that we finally maybe reached that point in time where enough is enough. 18 trillion in debt when I got here a little over 4 years ago, now 31 trillion. Let's look at the 4 years. It's been Republicans and Democrats that have kind of shared that burden of no budgets, spending. The last 2 years have been government enterprise on steroids. We know how this is going to end. If we don't get off the current trajectory, you go through something like a Chapter 11 that any other entity would go through.